Hello YouTube, Dylan the Shadal Duelist here. We now know all the cards coming out of Rise of the Duelist, and it is shaping up to be an interesting set indeed. Rise of the Duelist is the first core booster set not to follow the storyline of the anime, thus, there will be no anime archetypes in this set. Because of this, we are getting some really interesting new archetypes and some cool new support for older strategies. But the question is, how good is this set really, and will it be worth going after once it hits the shores of the TCG? Well, that is what this video seeks to answer. Let's start with the first few cards that were revealed when the set was first announced, and that is the new Gaia Support, with their new boss monster being the cover card of the set. The new Gaia cards are overall incredibly solid, with new cards like Gaia the Magical Knight that not only special summons itself from the hand if you control no monsters while your opponent does, but also special summons a level 5 dragon monster from your hand or graveyard. Your main target for this effect is going to be Curse of Dragon, a Curse of Dragon retrain that adds a spell or trap card from your deck to your hand that lists Gaia the Dragon Champion on summon, and can potentially negate the effects of all monsters your opponent controls. Speaking of Gaia the Dragon Champion, Gaia the Magical Dragon Champion is the new boss monster of the Gaia series and the before-mentioned cover card of the set. The new support revolves around buffing your Gaia fusion monsters, since Magical Dragon Champion is able to make itself lose 2600 attack to remove monsters on the field, and then gain 2600 attack whenever it destroys a monster. When you pair this with their new fusion spell that already gives Gaia a 2600 attack boost when summoned, and even some of the older, thought to be not so good Gaia cards like Spiral Spear Strike, which gives you both piercing damage and draw power, the Gaia playstyle has been given some really good new toys to play with. Noble Knights are getting a massive boost in the form of the Infernoble Knights, a sub-series of the Noble Knight archetype that, if I can be 100% honest here, completely outclasses the old strategy by a mile. While they have a very similar concept to the original Noble Knights in that they play around with equip cards, they also have a focus on synchro summoning, unlike the more Xyz-focused emphasis of the originals. Their new boss monster is Infernoble Knight Emperor, Charles, a level 9 synchro monster that can pop a card on the field when a monster is equipped with an equip card, even during the damage step, and during the end phase, Charles equips both an equip spell from your hand or graveyard, and a fire warrior monster from your deck to him, not only giving him whatever boost the equip spell would give him, but an additional 500 attack boost from the monster card. This is all on top of a beefy 3000 attack body. Charles isn't the only good card the Infernal Noble Knights have to offer though. Their other synchro monster, Infernal Noble Knight Vanguard, Roland, is a level 5 synchro tuner that acts as a stepping stone to Charles. During the end phase you summoned Roland, he searches out a warrior monster from your deck by setting an equipped spell card from your deck to the grave, and you can equip him to a monster you control for a 500 attack boost from your graveyard. The great thing about this new support, though, is that it outclasses the subpar support of the original Noble Knights, while still synergizing very well with the good ones. Ogier, for example, works as an amazing target for Madroct, as he sends either a Noble Arms or a Fire Warrior monster from the deck to the graveyard when he is special or normal summoned, setting up future plays as cards like Astolfo and Magus have effects that activate in the grave. And there's always, of course, Isolde, Two Tails of the Noble Knights that works well with any warrior-based strategy. The last thing I want to touch on with Infernoble Knights is the natural synergy with the new Gearfried monster coming out in the new warrior structure deck, God Phoenix Gearfried, a monster that not only synergizes with the natural equip spell focus that Noble Knights have, but the new fire focus the deck has turned to, since Gearfried himself is a powerful fire warrior monster that can equip a monster your opponent controls to it at the start of the damage step, allowing for the potential removal of 2 cards from your opponent's field when paired with Charles. Frightfur is next on the support list, and while it isn't getting as many new cards as Gaia and Noble Knights, their support is still pretty good. Frightfur's Scythe allows you to fusion summon during your opponent's main phase by revealing it in your hand. This gives the deck access to some powerful disruption on your opponent's turn, such as being able to summon Frightfur Kraken, which sends a monster to the graveyard on summon, or the new Frightfur Whale, which destroys a card on each side of the field when summoned. Scythe provides some protection for your fusion monsters as well, as it can banish itself from your grave if a Frightfur monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect, much like what Balance does for Salamangreat. Now, speaking of Frightfur Whale, as mentioned before, this new fusion monster destroys a card on each side of the field when summoned, which has synergy with Toy Vendor. You can also send a Frightfur monster from your extra deck to the graveyard in order to give a fusion monster you control a boost equal to half its original attack, and yes, this is a quick effect. This effect works really well with the new Frightfur Repair, which recycles your Frightfur monsters in the graveyard in order to summon a Fluffle or Edge Imp monster from your grave. While these aren't the only new cards Frightfur have received, these were the cards I felt like gave the deck the biggest boost and were the most worth talking about. Now, that's the support for the older strategies. What about the new archetypes? Well, look no further than what is probably the new archetype people are most excited for coming out of this set, and that is the Dragma archetype. Dragma is an archetype that focuses on dismantling your opponent's extra deck by sending cards from your extra deck to the graveyard. While this may seem counterintuitive, Dragma are actually able to get the most out of this, as they are able to run cards like Elder Entity Entis and Fossil Warrior Skull Knight for removal. Even their own fusion monster is designed with this mechanic in mind, as Bastard the Ashen Dragon either searches or special summons a Dragma monster, or Albus the Nullius Filius in the end phase of the turn it was sent to the graveyard. Cards like Disciple of the Nadir and Dragma Punishment send monsters from your extra deck to the graveyard to either search out a Dragma card or destroy a card on the field respectively. For the monsters, you have the Stratus of the archetype, Ecclesia the Dragma Saint, who can special summon herself from the hand should there be an extra deck monster on the field, and that's a search on summon. Fleur-de-Lis the Dragma Knight is also able to special summon himself should there be an extra deck monster on the field, but if you also control another Dragma monster, he negates the effects of a monster on the field as well, all on a quick effect. He also boosts your Dragma monster's attack whenever one declares an attack. Their boss monster is Cardinal of Dragma, Tetradragmaton, a monster with 3,400 attack that can destroy all attack position monsters your opponent controls when it battles an extra deck monster, and then deals 800 points of damage to your opponent for each Fusion, Synchro, Xyz, or Link monster destroyed by this effect. I recently did a video on a Shadal Dragma build I made, so if you're interested in learning more about how the cards work, and about the cards I didn't just cover, I highly suggest checking that video out. Now, despite all of this new support and the really cool new archetype coming out of the set, I'd be lying if I said it was all good. Let's take a quick glance at the new Dark Lord support, for example, shall we? The new support is, as I'm sure you've heard 100 other YouTubers point out, really bad. They shift the focus from swarming the field and gaining advantage by summoning from the grave and copying the effects of their spells and traps to, well, this new support is sort of all over the place, to be honest. The archetype got 3 new main deck monsters, Dark Lord Nurgle, which gives your fairy monsters piercing damage and the usual ability to copy the effects of one of your Dark Lord spells or traps in the grave. Dark Lord of Pleasure, which special summons 2 Dark Lord monsters from your hand or deck, which at first sounds amazing, until you realize that one of those monsters actually has to be special summoned to your opponent's side of the field. And finally, Dark Lord of Delight, which allows you to tribute summon a fairy monster as a quick effect, and then make your opponent's monsters lose 500 attack and defense for every fairy monster on the field when she is sent to the grave. What's even more mind-boggling, however, is their new boss monster, which is a fusion monster, a mechanic that the archetype has never focused on before. Lucifer, Dark Lord of the Morning Star, is a level 12 fusion monster that requires 3 fairy monsters as its fusion material. At 4,000 attack and defense, Lucifer has a very good stat line with built-in targeting protection not only for himself, but your other fairy monsters as well, and has the ability to special summon any fairy monster from your hand or graveyard, making this card pair particularly well with Archlord Christia. Lucifer is actually not a bad card at all. In fact, I think it's an incredibly solid card that has two huge caveats that, unfortunately, in my opinion, don't make it really worth playing. The first is the fact that Lucifer actually has another effect, which allows you to destroy all cards your opponent controls if you used Dark Lord Morningstar as one of the 3 fusion materials. A monster which most Dark Lord players don't even really play since it can't be special summoned, unlike the other Dark Lords, which is the sort of bread and butter for the archetype. The second reason isn't even really a problem with Lucifer himself, but the new Dark Lord fusion card, Rebellious Dark Lord. This is a trap fusion spell that requires you to send a Dark Lord monster from your hand or field to even activate. This means in order to get Lucifer out, you are giving up 4 cards just to summon it. Sure, you get life points equal to the attack of the sent monster, but none of that is worth running Lucifer unless you're running a dedicated build. Let's move on to the brand new Murphy archetype, which, while is incredibly cute, is also just bad. The deck focuses on level 2 beast monsters, which gives it some natural synergy with some existing cards like Obedient Schooled, but the deck itself is lacking quite a bit to make it a viable strategy. The deck is great at swarming the field since their main deck monsters all special summon themselves from the hand during the end phase and bounce themselves back for additional effects when a monster is summoned or it declares an attack on one of them. Murphy Cathy in particular has the potential to be broken if used correctly, as it can search out any beast monster from your deck and add it to your hand. Their boss monster, Murphy Mammy, is the closest the deck has to a win condition, and is a solid card that works well with how the deck functions, but unfortunately the archetype just does not have enough going for it to be competitively viable. Well, at least the artwork is cute. Okay, so those are the major players of the set. What about the single cards, the pack filler? How good are those? Well, it's an interesting mix to say the least. Rise of the Duelist is giving us some interesting cards like Fury of Kairyu Shin, a generic water support card that also makes Torrential Tribute searchable. A Draconian Prison of Snow and Sky, which allows you to summon a monster from your opponent's graveyard while negating its effects, and then banishing monsters from each side of the field who share the same type. Then of course, we have what is probably the most broken card to come out of this set. 3 Tactical Talents, which allows you to choose from 3 options if your opponent has activated a monster effect during your main phase. Either draw 2 cards, take control of a monster from your opponent's side of the field until the end phase, or look at their hand and make them shuffle a card back into the deck. So yes, a very powerful card indeed. So that was a look at Rise of the Duelist. The question is it any good? Honestly, I have to say that it is overwhelmingly good. Rise of the Duelist brings some powerful support to the table for past strategies that really could use the boost, and is bringing some amazing new cards to the game, such as the Dragma Archetype and 3 Tactical Talents. While the new Dark Lord support and Murphy archetype are really disappointing, the good this set brings truly does outweigh the bad, and I have a feeling that once it hits the shores of the TCG, Rise of the Duelist is going to bring the players into a new area of Yu-Gi-Oh! I hope you all enjoyed today's video. Rise of the Duelist is a really unique set that I am really looking forward to. If you guys enjoyed today's video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and make sure to ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Until next time guys, this is Dylan the Shadal Duelist, signing out.